Jeopardy fans, and we are live here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders, and I am hosting tonight's one-on-one interview with Zach Klitzman. He won on July 1st, returned on the 4th of July, and was unable to defend his championship, much like quite a few people in the last little while. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Okay. And of course, as always, if you happen to have any questions for the panel, you can leave them on the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, and I will certainly try to ask as many as I can that come through. Obviously, I have my own. While we get I'll just give a couple minutes for a couple more people to connect to the broadcast. But so if you'll just pardon me for a second there, Zach. Coming up in next week, actually, on Jeopardy Live panel, I've got, once again, I mentioned this last week, I've got Cecilia Huber. She was on the show back in 1990, and we're going to be having a bit of a discussion next week on panel about how things have changed in Jeopardy over the past 25 or so years. So I guess Cecilia and some of our other panelists will compare notes, and I think it'll be quite an interesting discussion. Now that that's happened, and I've talked a little bit, let's get straight. Let's start off with some questions from myself for you, Zach. So when did you audition for Jeopardy? Zach? Are you there? Have you disconnected on me? I suspect Zach is having some technical issues, so while we wait for those to resolve, sorry about that. Oh, yep, here he is returned. Thank you, Zach. There you are. You have returned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry about that. Somehow my internet just decided to not work right then as we went live. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah. So I guess we're on to the first question. Actually, this was mine. So when did you audition, or I guess how many times have you auditioned? And
Right.
this most.
Right. So I only auditioned once for Adult Jeopardy. I did audition once for College Jeopardy when I was a rising freshman, so the summer before my freshman year of college, but didn't get invited back or anything for that. So for the adult version, I took the online test in January 2014. Didn't hear back for a full year until January 15, when they asked, could I come in for an in-person audition here in Washington, D.C. in March of 2015. So did that, thought it went pretty well, but who knows. And then I didn't get the call for another year. So from January 2014, taking the online test, to my call on, I think, March 3rd of this year, flew out late March to tape. So it was over, and by the time, it aired and all that, it was over a 2-year process.
Wow, that's that is quite a process. Yeah. So congratulations though on getting on your first time.
Yes, thank you.
I know Lori mentioned recently on a panel. I think she was on about audition number 10 when she got the calls. So.
Someone at my audition was there for, I think, the 8th time, and I remember him because his shtick, his distinct thing is he loves doing karaoke around the world. And so Maggie, one of the contestant coordinators, of course, from Jeopardy, was like, I forgot the guy's name, but it's like, oh man, it's the karaoke guy, and knew him from all the previous auditions.
Yeah, I believe his name is Harvey. If that helps.
There you go. You go. You know more than me, so.
Yeah, he's quite a Jeopardy fan too, actually.
Sure.
But,
sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you got so that you taped in late March. So you obviously were the champion on a Friday, carrying over. Yes. So did you come back? Was yours, coming back the next day to tape?
It was the next day. So yeah, I was invited to come out for a Tuesday taping, all by the next day, Wednesday. So fortunately, I didn't have to fly cross country, multiple times in a short period of time since I live in DC. So that was good. did I have too many beers that night celebrating? Who knows? But I did. Yeah, I did come back the next day.
Okay. Well, yep, that's always good to know. And I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be the first contestant to quote unquote over celebrate.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but maybe just one more, just one too many.
Mm-hmm.
But
So, obviously, you got a chance to watch Harris, and he
yeah,
won a few games. What was it like? What was it like watching him from the audience?
sure. So one thing about Harris that I thought was really good is that he was very um not confident in a bad way, but he never panicked. If I remember correctly, he was leading maybe only one of the games I saw leading the final Jeopardy. Like he was down for a decent amount. He had some good comebacks, but as far as I could tell, he never seemed nervous or panicking. He wasn't, he didn't go in tilt or anything like that. And he didn't finish great at the end of the double Jeopardy round once or twice, but he was able to get final Jeopardy and come up with the win, which is always an important characteristic and trait.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I would say a lot of the times that the pressure is there, and people will fall to that pressure. And now, let's see. So obviously, yeah, you played on July 1st against I think yeah, Shamli and Valerie.
Yep.
Obviously, you had a very you did very well on the buzzer first time out.
Yeah.
Do you have any secrets you'd want to share about that, or was it just one of those things where you just managed to hit a rhythm?
Well, what I would do, and I didn't do this for every question because I certainly didn't know the answer immediately for every question, is on questions where I 100% knew the answer, after kind of quickly skimming it, I wouldn't even look at the video monitor that has the question. I wouldn't even look at Alex. I would look directly at the side of the scoreboard, which is where the lights flash on, where contestants get the signal to buzz. So that way I knew exactly what to look for. The moment it flashed, I would buzz in. So for every reason that worked on the Friday game, did not work on the Monday game as well. I haven't seen your stats for what my buzz-in rate was on the Monday game, but it certainly was not as good as it was on Friday.
Well, I think you were. I mean, you were almost at 50% on the Friday. Definitely not at that point on the Monday. Looks. I think it was 17 for 54.
Sounds about right.
On the Monday. So.
Sounds about right. So was that like 30%? Not even. So.
About just under a third.
Yeah. So which I mean, I was in a competitive game, so with two other very good players, so can't really, the buzzing is so key to the game, obviously. And the first game, I thought I was doing really well on. The second game, I thought I was doing the exact same thing, but just that much slower, I guess, or my opponents were that much faster.
Now, I'm just curious, do you have much of a video gaming background?
Video gaming background, slightly. I mean, maybe for the entire Jeopardy population, I would say above average, but maybe for my demographic, not hugely into video games. I mean, I play maybe one or two video games like at a time, and that's like maybe once or twice a month, if that.
Okay.
More like a sports video game, I would say, but I don't play like Halo or any more games where you're constantly pressing buttons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one thing I have found, I tend to ask a lot of people how they deal with the buzzer, whether it's Alex's voice or the lights, and I find that the lights work best for people who who have or who know their reflexes are really strong.
Sure.
But otherwise it's best for others, many people also time it off Alex's voice.
Right.
Now, how was rehearsal for you?
It was pretty good. I mean, I felt fairly confident with the buzzing. And it is good to get that kind of flow going and thinking about the questions, and you do kind of size up your opponents a little bit. Though obviously you kind of play against the entire week's worth of cast. You don't just play against the two people you're going up against.
Yeah.
But that's good. And I mean, sometimes it's annoying because it's like you're only on for a few questions, and then you have to kind of rotate in and out. And of course, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll get a good category. So it doesn't always play to your strengths. But And I will say on the second day, as a returning champ, they're very careful about this. They only give you 1 or 2 times to buzz in, really, and then you're out. So, did that affect me? Maybe, maybe not.
Good point. So were there any categories over your 2 games that you liked or disliked?
Well, as you heard in my interview on the first day, I work at a presidential site, President Lincoln Cottage. And so when I saw that first category or first round, Jeopardy round category, that was like, they were president when he died or something, or whatever the exact phrasing was, my eyes just lit up like, oh, presidential category. This is awesome. So that was really exciting. And I think I got 4 out of 5, including a daily double.
I had 3 out of 5, including the daily double, but also,
Sean Lee, Obama, one other.
Yeah, Sean Lee missed one too. So I mean, that also, Sean Lee took a negative 1,000, so that was also a big help for you.
Exactly, yeah, with the Elvis Presley one, yeah. So that was good. I like the United States of Kentucky, though. Again, I got one wrong there with Pennsylvania, and this is definitely skipping ahead because I'm sure you'll ask me about Final Jeopardy, but I was not excited at the Final Jeopardy category of businesses, but I was very excited with the question because in reality it was really a history question, not a business.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I was going to add, was part of my notes. Actually, that was a bit of a wheelhouse question for a historian, isn't it?
Yeah, that was. I got lucky in that one. And we can go into more detail on my Final Jeopardy strategy and whatnot. But so that was kind of a lucky one. And then let's see, in the second day, I thought I would do a little bit better than I did with the Catherine and the Great one because again it's history. But got a daily double, got 1 or maybe 2 others in that one. Didn't get Potemkin, I know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I will say NASCAR science. I'm a pretty big sports guy. NASCAR was just not my category. I got Talladega and maybe I knew 2 or 3 others, but I don't think I quite buzzed in that well there.
Yeah.
So I was a little disappointed at the one sports category. It was not really up my alley. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it might have been because I know I guess my question for you is what exactly do they tell you before a category like that comes up? Because it seems to be one of those categories with where it's kind of semi-publicized and they obviously need to get through the whole category at all costs. So do they tell anything to you, like the contestants?
No. Well, first off, they certainly don't publicize it because, I tape so far in advance they don't need to really make a big deal about it, until it airs. So they really did not tell us anything. No, that's a good point. I never really thought about that how they have to get in the promoted content. So my guess is if somehow we left that for last, they never would have called the game over. The round. Let it go through.
That's exactly what happened. You guys left that category. The $200 and $400 clues were the last 2 clues you played, and I think it actually led to you guys not seeing nearly as many as you could have in Double Jeopardy.
And you know what? The game moves so fast. I never would have thought and realized that at the time. I really didn't. But you got to be right. But 100%, they give no indication like, hey guys, you're gonna really want to pick this category. I mean, there's nothing of that.
Okay.
And even in the moment, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is all video and they filmed it. Like on site, they're gonna want these questions. So yeah, so that one was a little bit of a kind of threw me for a loop a little bit there, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, so that was definitely the only sports. The only sports category over your 2 games. Obviously, the
baseball one. So of course, what can you do? They're randomly selected categories, so you can't think about it too much.
Yeah, some of the sports categories managed to, it's weird because you've got it's weird because so many of the sports sites like to, when sports questions aren't answered, in their entirety, they seem to. These sports sites tend to take great glee out of the fact, oh look, we know sports, but.
Well, I've seen some of those videos, and it's just one of those things. if you're into that kind of category or content, like, of course, how did they not know what a change-up is? But, you know, at the same time, I'm sure there's, you know, musical fans who, you know, a musical category comes up and no one gets it. It's like, oh my God, how did you not know Carousel or whatever?
Yep,
So,
exactly. And I mean, everyone has their pet subjects that they want to, you know, obviously want to see all the clues get taken in. But
sure.
so about the Daily Double you got wrong, the possum one.
Yeah.
I guess talk us through your thought process a bit,
Right.
and then and then as a follow up already, how difficult would you say is it to come back when you happen to miss a large bet Daily Double like that?
Great question. So to answer your first question, here's the full story, and I hope this doesn't come across as overly cocky or overly confident or anything like that. But so kind of going in, you know, I didn't approach the whole thing with like, oh my God, there's so much money at play. Like, you got to think of the dollars. Like, oh my God, you know, and I try not to be very nervous and tense about it. And so after my first day when I won pretty big, or, you know, I won a large amount of money, I realized that's awesome. I just won $37,000. That's huge. At this point, you know, I'm playing with house money. Like, there's nothing to lose. And so I figured, you know, I got this Daily Double late in the first round. I can't remember off the top of my head if I was leading. I think I was like right at tied or within a couple $100 at first.
Yeah.
And I figured, you know, these are two really good opponents. Animal Young is not my best category per se, but I've already gotten at least one question with the blue whale, and I know I certainly knew the answers to a couple others. Like, you know, it's a decent enough category, and you know what? I already won. Let's go for it. You know, I already got the money in the bank. And so I said Daily Double, you know, or True Daily Double. And I realized if I got it wrong, there was still a whole nother round to go where the point values are double. There's two Daily Doubles. As I saw with Harris, as I said earlier, you know, Harris Stutman was not winning in one or two games going to Final Jeopardy. So even if I, you know, didn't come back from a potential loss, you know, I still could win it in FJ, Final Jeopardy. So that was kind of my strategy going in. And then the question comes, and I just like, I don't know the answer. And so I can explain why I said donkey, which Alex Trebek really got a kick out of, which is that I'm pretty sure adult male donkeys are called Jacks, and then females are Jills. So I figured Jack, Jill, and Joey. Why not? And then the moment he said possum, I'm like, all right, got to be a marsupial and, you know, possum. So that was kind of my thought process. But then as to your second question, coming back, you know, that's the thing. I like to think I'm a strong player. If they're the right categories, I could come back. And for a brief time in Double Jeopardy there, I think I did come back for somewhat. So, you know, you can't get too discouraged. You have to know there's more time, there's more categories, there's a lot more dollars on the board, and just kind of keep going after your game.
And I mean, I would say, I think Alex Jacob says the same thing to people. Like, exactly, you know, and, you know, single Jeopardy, early in Double Jeopardy, really should be betting everything because there's so much time to come back.
Exactly. Exactly.
So obviously, going through some of my, I'll just go to the hashtag. Nicole Romano is left a couple of comments. She's taking blame for these slow reflexes. Muchas cervezas.
Yeah, that's my girlfriend. Yeah, no, yeah, and Tuesday night after the show, Nicole and our other friend was out there. We went to this one Mexican place, but you know, I didn't think it was too many, but you never know. And actually, a funny story. I'll share this now. Totally embarrassing myself. So the next day, I woke up on a normal time, and I really did not feel bad or anything like that. But I guess I didn't sleep as well the night before or something. And so I actually, I went down to catch the bus to the studio, with maybe a couple minutes to spare, but I needed to, put my tie on. So I went to the bathroom to do that. And by the time I got out there, the bus had already left for the studio with all the contestants.
Oh, no.
So I was like, oh, my God. So fortunately, my girlfriend was able to give me a ride to the studio, and I got there on time. That wasn't an issue. But the day did not start off to auspicious start. So was it the couple beers I had on the previous night? Maybe, maybe not. But, we'll never know.
Okay, so I guess if you're tuning in and haven't been on the show yet, obviously make sure you get there plenty of time in advance of the shuttle time.
Yes.
And do not, because I I think if I remember correctly, that I've heard one or two other stories from people who've missed the shuttle. So
Yeah, it's when they say 7:15, they really mean 7:13 or 7:10. So, and
yeah.
I think it was there at 7:14. Like I was just by my watch, I was on time, but 2 minutes late.
Okay. So yeah, keep that in mind. So yes, moving through. Also, a comment from Nicole on the on that changeup clue. But come on, they described the pitch and that it was off speed. What else could it be? But if you like it's the kind of thing. If you follow baseball, it's a very easy question. If you don't, then it's not an easy question. And I guess you could again say the same thing if Jeopardy starts dropping Hamilton references. Then if you're familiar with the show, you're going to get it. If you're not familiar with the show, you're not. And if you just happen to get three people who aren't familiar with the show, then you're going to have, I would say, million people who are upset at you, but guess what? That's not that's one of those things that happens. So as I was, I guess, going to ask next, you were obviously your first week, you got the opportunity to spend the entire day at the studio, which means you got to spend time at the Sony commissary.
Yes, I did.
In between the Wednesday and Thursday shows, which leads me to the question originally asked by Ben Ingram, but I now ask it on every panel. What did you get to have for lunch?
Let's see if I can remember. I think I had a sandwich, and I want to say I was slightly disappointed because I thought it would be a hot sandwich and it was cold. Not lukewarm, like it just came cold. And it was like maybe a roast beef and cheese sandwich, something along those lines. And I'm like, this really should be hot, but like I guess I ordered wrongly or something. So I got that and maybe a thing of chips. Maybe like not even, because they gave you a voucher for maybe like $12, $13.
Yeah,
it seemed like the right amount, but it was it's cafeteria food, so it was like maybe $8 or $9 for the sandwich, $2 or $3 for chips, and another $2 for a drink. So I forgot if I got a drink or chips. But one of my contestants, maybe even Liz, who I ended up losing to, I can't quite remember, to be honest. But one of them, she said her meal came to maybe like $14, and she had like a coupon for like 12. And the Jeopardy people told us, like, if you're a couple bucks off, like, we'll pay for the difference. Don't worry about it. But I guess she didn't get in line like next to someone, and the woman's like, "You owe $2," and she's like, "I was told this would be like covered, like maybe the tax put it over." It was like such a small amount, so I forgot exactly how she resolved it. But yeah, it was fun eating there, and the food was fine. Nothing to write home about, but.
Thank you. So yeah, sounds good. I mean, obviously, I think the salad is often popular amongst people, but
I could see that.
Yeah. So, how did you find social media during your two shows?
So personally, I kind of stayed off like reading responses. I was live tweeting it a little bit, and some people were tweeting at me, so I kind of saw their responses. But afterwards, some of my friends sent me some of the hilarious / mean stuff online, and some of it, you gotta just shrug off. Some of it was kind of funny. I'll totally admit that I make faces. I'm just an animated guy, and so there's this one like close up, or it's not even really close up, but freeze frame of when I had the very early daily double. I guess it was kind of nervousness or whatever. It's the one on in the present. This is the first game. The presidential category, and it was like James Dean, or was the entire clue, and the answer is Eisenhower. And I just kind of go but not even in real life I didn't freeze up. It was just like in my emotion, like Eisenhower, but like this person paused at the exact moment, and it's just like, so that was a really funny screen grab. And some of the other stuff I got, for some reason, someone thought I sound like Jimmy Fallon, or Jimmy Fallon could do an impression of me, which I'm not quite sure if that's an insult or a compliment.
I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of things I read often on on social media that it's like, I'm not sure how to take this, but
yeah, exactly. Someone called me says that the guy on Jeopardy was meant to be a gay mortician, which I think is a 30 Rock joke, but I guess I don't know. And I got a few kind of meanish comments like, "Oh, I won't really want to punch this guy's face." I think I got one of those, or I really dislike the guy in Jeopardy, and I'm not talking about Alex Trebek, which was kind of funny, I guess. But for the most part, I think it was more or less fine. And I will say, somewhat unfortunate, Justin, who was in my second game. He was a pretty nice guy off screen, but I guess for some reason people thought he was just kind of smug or whatever, just the way he looked. I don't know if I necessarily saw it, but apparently, on that game, people were saying that some of my friends who were looking at Jeopardy hashtag and whatnot said a lot of stuff was more directed at him than me, but which is unfortunate because it's a tough situation when you're on stage. Like some people are just nervous naturally, some people look more confident, I guess. I thought I looked somewhat natural, but I'm sure people thought I looked goofy. So, it's you got to shrug it off and just kind of focus on the positive.
People generally make a lot of snap decisions based on people and how they perceive them to be on television, and I can't entirely say I'm a fan of that. But
yeah, exactly. It's and it's as one of my friends said, the hater's gonna hate.
Yeah.
Quoting T Swift there, but what can you do? Just ignore it and focus on the positives.
Yeah. So my next question, I guess obviously your second game aired on the 4th of July. What's it like airing on a holiday?
So one thing I will say is that, I did lose that game. And so they kind of joke when they do the overview, like before you tape anything, like about not giving things away. And so they say, one thing you shouldn't fall into the trap of is saying, "Oh, everyone, please watch this date, but don't watch the other date. It wasn't as good." And to some degree, I kind of, with the holiday built in, I kind of knew people weren't going to watch, as many people were going to watch as what on Friday. So I didn't necessarily promote it too much, especially beforehand. Beforehand you can't see anything.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the weird thing is that even if I had one on July 4th, I had a nice little get together for some friends to watch on the 1st. I couldn't really organize something on the 4th because you can't really do advanced, invites because obviously then they know you won. But also it is the holiday. So I did find that a little bit harder to deal with. Though I did get some nice notes from a lot of people who saw it. And, after at the party on Friday, after I went and told everyone it is on Monday, I did, post out to social media. Because I think actually, and perhaps this, but I think they only take off Christmas for for new episodes.
No, they even air Christmas.
They even air Christmas? So maybe
even air Christmas, yeah. No, they air, does not matter what holiday. It is Monday through Friday. They do episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So, July 4th, and in DC at least it was raining, so maybe people didn't go out for the fireworks and so they watched, ABC, which is the channel it's on here, who knows. But it was not great that it was July 4th. But I was joking with some of my history friends that now I know how Vicksburg, Mississippi feels because they were sieged on July 4th, and so for many years Vicksburg didn't celebrate July 4th. So I lost on July 4th, so it was slightly sadder than usual. But going forward, I'm sure it'll be water under the bridge by next year.
Yeah. So after you lost the game, did you stick around the studio, or did you kind of just head out?
So here's the story, which is that, to answer your question, I left immediately. It wasn't out of any bitterness or disgust, but there were two reasons. The main reason is I already had seen 4 episodes taped the previous day, so I got in my fair share of Jeopardy. And also, kind of the bigger reason, to be honest, is due to timing, and with my school schedule and some other stuff, I couldn't really take a full vacation in California. So I literally flew out Monday night and had a Thursday morning flight back. So because of that, I wanted to maximize my sightseeing time to some degree. So as soon as I lost, my girlfriend and I, we just left the studio, got lunch, did a little touristy stuff for a little bit. If I had a full week in LA, yeah, maybe I would have stayed around. It's still pretty cool being in the studio and whatnot. But, time was of the essence, to be honest. And we already had seen a full day's worth of stuff, so decided to head out.
So what sort of stuff did you do when you had that time on Wednesday out in LA?
Yeah, so we kind of went back to the hotel, changed, because I was wearing a suit the whole day or whatever.
Mhm.
And then yeah, we went to lunch at a place kind of near Hollywood Boulevard, but a little bit off, and it was a really lovely lunch. Wish I had the place so I could plug it, but that was nice. And we kind of just drove around for a bit. We went up to the was it Griffith Observatory up there on the hills, the Hollywood Hills. And then later that night, I met up with some of my friends from high school, live out there in not Hermosa Beach, maybe it's one of those beach towns, Manhattan Beach, something like that. And kind of chilled with them for a little bit. So it was nice. And, nothing too crazy. Didn't go to Disney World, Disneyland, or anything like that. But it was a nice, relaxing afternoon.
So speaking of Disney, I
Yes.
guess that was obviously your final Jeopardy.
Yes. Yes.
How did Justin say anything afterwards about his thought process or?
I have to be honest. I didn't talk to him. Um, he, yeah, I didn't talk to him, so I don't really, can't really speak for him.
Okay.
Don't know his mood or anything. It was such a tough blow. Really leading the whole game. It wasn't even like it was back and forth, and he just happened to be in front in Final Jeopardy. He really was winning for most of it, or at least from what I remember. And so, yeah, I think he was a little disappointed. To be honest, and well, I mean, I guess you saw the result. I thought Space Mountain too,
Yeah.
and it really, and it's one of those things. Usually your first reaction, your gut instinct is correct. It's kind of like the number one rule of trivia. And so I immediately thought Space Mountain because like 1960s, that sounds like a new thing, and it's a pretty unique ride. But then the reason why I crossed out Space Mountain, I thought, what the heck does UNICEF have to do with that? Like, why would they get money from it? And so then I thought, like, what's an international thing? Oh, It's a Small World.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of a running joke because I was in the pet band at my school in college, and our director hated It's a Small World. He thought it was like the dumbest ride ever, and we went to Disney World once. And so, I always had that kind of in the back of my mind. That Greer hates it. It's kind of a running joke. And so I thought, oh yeah, It's a Small World with all those kids singing stupidly, according to Greer, my friend. So I figured, okay, change it. But at that point, the Jeopardy music was almost over. So I crossed on my answer and I had to scribble, It's a Small World, which there's a lot of characters in It's a Small World. And so, I had terrible handwriting. I was joking with Alex, but fortunately the judges accepted it.
Well, I think fortunately the judges actually get the opportunity to see each stroke as it goes down, so they have a general idea of what people are attempting to say, and it's very rare when people when a correct response is judged as illegible. So
Exactly. And now here's the $1 million question, which we'll never know, or maybe not 1 million, but 20,000, whatever it is. If I had been in contention, I would hope they still would have accepted it. Now at that point, it was kind of obvious I'm not going to win, but I would hope that wasn't the reason. They just gave it to me because they knew it wouldn't matter. But who knows?
to be honest, I think that they don't judge based on in contention or out of contention. They judge based on what they see and are consistent and fair that way.
You would hope so, at least. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So one comment here from Matt Carberry. The only thing that bumps Jeopardy off of a weekday is a U.S. presidential election with a 60-plus game winning streak in progress. That, of course, a reference back to Ken Jennings' run. They pushed during the 2004 election. They wanted to see, they didn't want to have a Ken game be preempted. So they actually pushed, they went Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Wow.
Cool. So a couple of a question here, I guess a follow-up from Fred Vaughn.
Sure.
Given the social media comments about you, do you have advice for future contestants besides the obvious ignore it?
Besides ignore it, I would say so yeah, ignoring really is the best way to go, definitely, just because who are they to you? They're just some random person on the internet who can't do what you can do and are definitely jealous of you. But on the other hand, if there's going to be some positive celebrity, or sorry, not celebrity, social media stuff out there, almost certainly. So if you do find a couple ones out there, maybe focus on that. The other thing you can do is if you yourself are on social medias, if you're live tweeting your show or commenting on Facebook, just kind of explain some of your decisions, because that's the thing. Like, maybe they'll say something really stupid about how you look, but you can't control that. But if they say something stupid about your game, or why did he risk all that money or something, if you respond, or you don't have to respond directly to them, but if you're just posting along like, oh, here's my thought process, perhaps that'll change people's outlooks. But at the end of the day, again, these are just random, anonymous people on the internet. I don't want to put too much, faith or, worry too much about what they're saying about you.
Makes sense. So another question here from Elissa Flagg. Now, when you watch an episode of Jeopardy, since you've taped, how is it different, or how do you feel, having been at the studio and have been on stage?
Well, I will say, and I really apologize because I know this is going to sound like bitter grapes, and it probably will, but a little tinge of kind of bittersweet, almost not sadness. That's perhaps the wrong word, but there are questions, and this can happen at every Jeopardy episode I ever watch. There are going to be questions I know that the people there don't, and it's frustrating in some ways that those weren't the questions I had. But there's really nothing you can do about it. And that's the thing about Jeopardy that I've said to a lot of people, which is pretty. I mean, it's not 100% unique to game shows, but compared to a lot of others, like perhaps Wheel of Fortune or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is the best example, is no matter how much money you win, no matter how many games you win, at the end of the day, you lose. Ken Jennings lost. He might, for all I know, maybe he still loses sleep over H&R Block. Who knows? Obviously, if you're during the Tournament of Champions, you win, potentially. But, in regular Jeopardy gameplay, you're going to lose at some point. And so, in some ways, it puts a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. Your last memory is maybe not getting a Final Jeopardy right, or screwing up a Daily Double, or the categories weren't right. And at the end of the day, you have to, weigh the positives and the negatives. And for me, obviously, I won a game. I won a lot of money. So definitely a positive experience overall. But the moment I flew back, the day after that episode taped, and I lost, I wasn't dying to see Jeopardy and get questions right that, were on the show that I, had taped. So, but now, especially now that they've aired, and, people say, oh, I'm so proud of you. That's such a great job. And I've seen all that, and, and it's kind of happened. I'm already a Jeopardy, contestant. I have a little bit more positive of a view of the show. I can watch it and kind of appreciate it a little bit more without feeling bittersweet. But, and to be honest, I don't know what it is, but it seems like a lot of the Final Jeopardies this last week I've not gotten playing from home, half paying attention or whatever. So for all I know, maybe I was there at the right time. I got both my Final Jeopardies right. So at the end of the day, it's still a good experience.
So my next question is, again, one that I've started asking all the panelists. Most, I would say, the vast majority of people who have been on the show have had that moment where they I guess where they kind of fell in love with Jeopardy and watching it. So I guess go back for you. How did you kind of fall in love with Jeopardy?
Wow, that's a great question, and I always feel bad because I don't have a great answer. I don't have a In fact, that's one question they ask you when you become a contestant, in case it becomes part of your shtick with Alex. And one of the competitors my week, who I think was on the show, on the Jeopardy live panel last week, Dolph. His story was that he listened to like the Weird Al Yankovic story or record. I don't quite have something as good as that. I would say two things. One is which I've always kind of liked trivia my whole life. I played like Quiz Bowl in high school, so I've always kind of watched it off and on. And Ken Jennings' run was pretty cool, though I wasn't necessarily watching every single day, hanging on to his every last word. But I remember when he said, "What's a hoe?" and some other big moments. And one other thing I will say, and I can get into a little more detail if you want about this, because I have a kind of interesting anecdote from when I was on set. But my mom was actually on Jeopardy.
Really?
I believe in 2003 2003, maybe 2002. Now she has a different last name than me, which is key. Her name's Justine Lisser, Lisser. She did not do so great. So she definitely had something of a bitter reaction to Jeopardy a little bit, but because she finished in second, even though she had like $20,000. So
oh yeah, she played against Tom Kelso.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, that's true. I think I might be Facebook friends with him now. I need to mention that to
Yeah.
him. Yeah, exactly. And as you can see, in Double Jeopardy, she got a category I would have done great in, first in the NFL draft. She did not do so well in that
Well,
category.
okay. Can I just, in the defense of Mr. Kelso, I have been in a fantasy football league with Tom Kelso for a significant, for the better part of a decade and a half. So
There you go.
it does not surprise, looking back at J Archive right now, it does not surprise me that Tom Kelso ran that category.
Exactly. And it was kind of unfortunate, as you can see from J Archive in the gameplay. The third guy, I think Eric, wasn't that his name?
I think sorry, his name was Matt Olson.
Matt, not Eric. Thank you. He he couldn't get the football ones, and he didn't quite buzz in enough to kind of take Tom down a little bit. So it became a 2-horse race, and they both got Final Jeopardy right, but my mom came in second. So so that was definitely a crystallizing moment to some degree, and that was right before Ken Jennings went on the streak. So she didn't run up against him or anything like that. But so that was definitely the most memorable of Jeopardy episode that I had watched before mine.
So do you think that obviously, are you going to be like, or ever going to use the, well, I'm the one who actually won on Jeopardy in an argument at any point?
It was funny. My mom posted on like the invite wall of like for my watch party something like Jeopardy 2: The Revenge of the Sun or something like that. So, but here's the kind of anecdote from on set. So you have to give like four or five interesting facts about you, and then you have to fill out all these questions, to get your anecdotes to talk to Alex. And so I put as one of my top 5 interesting facts, maybe I put it like second or third, that my mom was on Jeopardy 12 years ago or whatever, and she lost because of this like NFL first draft pick or whatever. I thought that would be an entertaining, endearing story. But not only did they not select it as one of the top like comments or for Alex to choose to talk to me about, at no point when I was on set did anyone mention it to me at all.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so I got this weird sense that they almost felt like if it was publicly admitted, it would seem like nepotism or got some kind of advantage or anything along those lines. So, for all I know, maybe it was the opposite. Maybe they just didn't want to embarrass her, shouldn't do so. I don't know what, but not even off camera, like, oh, and hey, isn't it cool? Like, tell me about your mom's time or whatever. Like, and I certainly, I was very upfront with it. You have to say all the people who were on, I didn't lie about it. I wasn't hiding it or anything. But it almost seemed like they wanted to hide it. And I don't want to, put words into Jeopardy's mouth, and they're all nice people. But that was just kind of a little bit strange that at no point did anyone mention anything to me. Alex wasn't queued up, so he didn't, say anything to me, which that's kind of understandable. But yeah.
That's weird because I think I know that I definitely recall some interviews where it has been brought up. So maybe they just thought that you had enough other stuff that there was no need to mention it. But
yeah, if I had, I'm who knows how many games, if I had won. But at a certain point, I definitely would have said it. I'm not that interesting. I don't have that many fun facts. So I feel like at some point they would have brought it up, but not even, it was slightly weird. At one point I almost wanted to say something, but it's like, well, who knows? So
I think it was just something that I don't think there was any sort of anything nefarious going on with that, but
about that.
Well, at this point, my list of questions is exhausted, and I'm just going to check the hashtag one more time to see if anyone else has any further comments. It does not look so at this point. So, Zach, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me on this interview tonight for
Yes,
hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. I hope you enjoyed it.
definitely. Thank you so much, Andy. It was great to be on, great to talk about it, and happy to come back some other time.
Sounds great. So yeah, for those of you who are tuning in, thank you very much. The next episode is scheduled for Monday, July the 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Once again, looks like I'm trying to set up a discussion. I guess Jeopardy back in 1990 versus Jeopardy in 2015. Oh, Matt Carberry mentioned, if he remembers correctly, they didn't mention Kristen Sauceville's connection with her husband until her third game. So. But I think at some point they did eventually. I think they might have publicized that a bit later on, but
Right. Yeah, exactly. Again, yeah, definitely not anything nefarious, but it was just slightly odd that they didn't, mention it off camera or anything like that.
Fair enough. Well, yep. Once again, yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and I'd love to have you back at some point. So,
Definitely.
and for those of you who are tuning in, thank you very much. Once again, the audio simulcast of this interview will be on iTunes and Google Play for the for the audio in the next day or so. Oh, but one more question from Alyssa Flagg before we go. Who else in Zach's family is looking to get on the show?
Nice. Well, my dad is a trivia guy, but I have to be honest, and he's admitted this. I don't think his reflexes are quite good enough. Maybe something like Millionaire or Wheel of Fortune for him, but.
Well,
yeah, and then I just have a brother, so.
I would say, maybe he should talk to Harris for some tips.
There you go. Perhaps.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you very much. And for everyone here at the JeopardyFan.com and hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, thank you very much for tuning in and taking part tonight. Thanks for your tweets in as well. Have a great night.